natural patterns. They're all connected.
It's just started to rain again.
And it's raining again.
You get the feeling that the last time people saw this much inland water, they were probably on the Ark with Noah. When things are normal, we call the Mississippi Big River. When things are like this, there is no word for the bigness. This is big like Rockefeller is rich. It's almost impossible to get your mind around the sheer amount of water flowing in this great flood of '93. But try these numbers on for size. The Army Corps of Engineers estimates that the Mississippi, when it crested, was running 400 to 500% higher than its normal volume. That means at Hannibal, Missouri, the river was flowing up to 3,244,500 gallons every second. That's like having nearly 5 Niagara Falls thundering past town every second. Nearly 200 million gallons a minute, and the river's been running like this for weeks. If it's hard to imagine that volume of water, consider its weight. Every second, 201,159,000 pounds of water. That's about 1.5 million people my size, every second. Is that impossible to understand? Well, let's try this size. In Quincy, Illinois, when the river's where it's supposed to be, it's about 3,000 feet from one bank to the other, a little over half a mile. Right now, the river is 5¼ miles wide, almost 10 times normal. If the Hudson River suddenly grew to 5¼ miles wide, it would flood every foot of Manhattan Island twice. For now, the water level has stabilized. Cold comfort if your house has become an aquarium. No comfort at all for those whose losses are the truly unimaginable part of this story. No numbers are enough for that. Would you say it's over-engineered?
You hit that right on the head.
Over-engineered is a term used often by those claiming this waterway has too many roadblocks, like dams and levees. The Corps of Engineers is what you might call the nation's flood wall king. It's responsible for 6,500 miles of levees and 80 locks and dams in the Mississippi River system. The critics say the big Corps projects cause river water to back up and run over the smaller, locally built levees. So even though the Corps was supposed to control flooding, some places like St. Charles County, Missouri, continue to go underwater and file for disaster aid time and time again.
U.S. taxpayers spent about $25 billion building locks, dams, and levees on the Mississippi and other rivers in this country. And we're seeing that even with that massive investment, we can't stop floods.
The real question is whether the Corps has made any difference at all.
What we're doing is minimizing the effects of the damages on these protected areas. So instead of all the communities across the river being flooded every 10 years on the average, they may be flooded every 500 or 1,000 years with this levee here.
The Corps is beginning studies on yet another lock and dam project for the upper Mississippi, this one at a cost of up to $5 billion. This, as critics ask, how much should we spend trying to control the uncontrollable? One final thought. The Army engineer who built the first levees along the Mississippi was a young first lieutenant named Robert E. Lee.
What a deceptive stream. At dusk, it appears tranquil from above. At ground zero, it's blown apart the hospital routine.
Well, if someone does get in serious trouble, they talk about the golden hour in emergency care, don't they? And,
exactly.
This helicopter might be important in preserving that time.
Oh, sure. There'd be no way to get over here from Missouri, even close to an hour.
When you have to get there now, the only way out is up.
With the bridges out, the helicopter reduces a 4 to 6 hour drive to a 15-minute flight, enough to make a big difference in an emergency.
When we took off, I was scared. There's no doubt about it. But I made my mind up we was going to get over there one way or another, just to get over here to have this baby.
That baby will probably tell his grandchildren about being born in the year of the Great Flood of '93. This river has a way of imposing its history on people.
Mississippi, the Big Muddy, the father of all waters. Big names for Old Man River, a mighty waterway made mightier by floods. Its origin comes from the Ojibwa Indian word Mississippi, or Big River. And its history is just as grand. Spanish conquistador Hernando de Soto was the first non-Indian to cross the wide brown water in search of gold. He was also the first white man to see the Mississippi in flood. De Soto led his team into what is now Arkansas with his army around 1542. No gold was to be found. When he died a year later, soldiers placed his body in a hollow log and set it adrift on the river he discovered. More than a century later, French explorer La Salle set out from Canada by boat and made it all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. These early explorers set the stage for an important inland waterway. Many more boats would ply the waters, and many tales would be told as the river, through technology and lore, became the mighty Mississippi we know today.
If you travel around the country on business, you've probably noticed that more and more Alamo rent-a-cars are turning up in the best-known business regions. In the Sun Belt, the Grain Belt, as well as inside the Beltway. You see our Cadillacs on Wall Street, our convertibles in Tinseltown, and our LeSabres in the Loop. That's because no matter which belt, corridor, or coast you travel to on business, you're in Alamo territory. With more on-airport locations than ever. Express service coming and going. Low nationwide rates. And of course with Alamo, all the miles are free. Including the ones in places where doing business isn't all business. Alamo, where all the miles are free.
Underneath every new Jimmy is the strength of a strong truck frame. An important advantage for towing, whether you're on-road or off-road. The GMC Jimmy. Drop in for a test drive.
Every broker offers something different, but now Oldie Discount offers an industry breakthrough. Commission-free trading. It's called Smart Trade. With Smart Trade, if you trade 1,000 shares or more, you pay absolutely no commission. None. Zero. So while others promise the world, Oldie offers you something more down to earth. No commission. Oldie, America's full-service discount broker. Why trade with anyone else?
Jake and Elwood Blues, two brothers with a mission.
They're not going to catch us. We're on a mission from God.
John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, the Blues Brothers, 8:05 Eastern, Wednesday on TBS.
The thunder of the Des Moines River over Iowa's Red Rock Dam speaks volumes about the power and size of North America's mightiest river system. The Des Moines is but one of dozens of major tributaries that feed the Mississippi as it flows more than 2,000 miles from near the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico. This river is deceptively quiet. During the height of the flood, it surged past St. Louis at the rate of 7 million gallons a second, almost 6 times its typical flow.
I have never seen such a broad area in which flooding is going on. Almost all of the upper Midwest now has some flooding.
Portions of the upper Mississippi River system have been above flood stage for almost 2 months now. The belt of active flooding has rolled down the river like a monstrous brown wave, at times stretching a length of almost 500 miles. And still, it rained.
This flood illustrates an old maxim. Those who fail to remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And if you live along what the government calls a 100-year floodplain, you must know you are gambling.
It's time for a little question and answer period. Do you know what a 100-year floodplain is? Does anybody?
Probably it hasn't been this bad in 100 years.
It's the floodplain that on average would experience, it's an area.
I don't know. I'm from Tucson, Arizona.
Probably the level of where the water's been in those consecutive years.
I'm sorry, wrong answers, but thank you for playing. Too bad this isn't a game. In fact, this is some of the most serious gambling people do, choosing to live on a 100-year floodplain. It's kind of like that old Groucho Marx show, You Bet Your Life, only here, the very least you bet is your house. The houses marinating in Mississippi mud, they're all on a floodplain. This is a 100-year flood, this flood of 1993. But so was the flood of 1973. You say this doesn't make sense? It seems like you should have one 100-year flood every 100 years. This is where the gamble comes in. According to the Army Corps of Engineers, a 100-year floodplain is not an area that's expected to flood once every 100 years. On a 100-year floodplain, the odds are 1 in 100 that it will flood in any given year. And any good bookie will tell you 100 to 1 long shots do hit.
This is the neighborhood Joe and Sandy Yoakum have called home for 7 years.
A week ago, I would have been proud to have anybody come out here and see my place where I live. This place is destroyed. Destroyed.
They were one of the first families to move into this mobile home community. They say they and their neighbors were told the land was flood-proof.
That was the policy that we were all sold. The sales pitch is that we've raised the park 8.5, 9 feet above the floodplain.
Now they are knee-deep in false assurances. Their sense of humor battles a daily rising tide of frustration.
All the aid that they talk of is nothing is immediate. Everything takes time.
Emotionally, it's like a Chinese water torture, just a little bit at a time.
And reality means waiting for promises to be delivered.
I hear about all these things that they're going to do for us, but what the bottom line is what reality is, nobody knows. When I called FEMA, they took the information and said call back in a week or so. In the meantime, I'm tapped.
It goes beyond money. It's also about pride.
What's the hardest part?
Just seeing
the waiting.
The waiting and seeing everything that your home. Even though we are mobile homeowners, it still is our home.
There are 2 ways to protect against flooding. Number 1, keep the water away from the people, or number 2, keep the people away from the water. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers uses the first tact. FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, uses the second method. But obviously, something isn't working.
Oh, look there, collapsed. Oh, just total devastation here.
A lot of people that are homeless, and they've lost everything.
There's a lot of cleanup to be done before anybody can be back.
This throws everything into a tailspin, and people have to try to pick up the pieces.
Disasters are FEMA's business. The government agency provides emergency aid to victims of earthquakes, hurricanes, and other catastrophes. But it also works to lessen the impact of disasters before they happen. FEMA runs what you might call a carrot and stick program, the National Flood Insurance Program. The carrot, property owners can buy government-backed flood insurance if their community participates in the program. The stick, local officials must implement the government's floodplain management standards. That usually means making sure new structures are elevated above expected flood levels, like these buildings.